Hey everyone, Rush here. In this video, I wanted to go ahead and break down a specific area of the Dawnbreaker. I'm not going to be going over the whole dungeon, but I do want to talk about kind of the area that can be pretty intimidating, I think, for new tanks and new players that are jumping into Mythic Plus and the war within. So the specific area of the dungeon I wanted to talk about was everything after the first boss going up to the second boss. That's the area that basically when you're flying down from the ship, you have to land somewhere in the city. There's three mini bosses in different spots inside the city. You have to kill those mini bosses as well as killing enough trash in order to get your count up to 100%. And so I wanted to break down this route that I did. This was a +8 key that I did earlier this week. We managed to time this with 2 chests, so done in a pretty efficient manner. And this was just a pug key. Nobody in voice. We didn't really communicate in chat very much. I shared a route, and then from there we pretty much just kind of went through and breezed through the key. And I think a lot of that just has to come with effectively managing the whole city portion of the Dawnbreaker. So I'm going to make it really easy for everyone, and we're going to talk about how to manage that part of the dungeon, so that way you can start hopping into these keys and crushing these Dawnbreakers. So let's go ahead and hop into the run here. So we're pretty much just finishing off the first boss here. We're doing pretty good on time. I've only had 1 death so far, so doing pretty good on this key. This first boss is doing their darkness ability. So we're going to go ahead and get on our flying mount. And then we're just going to go ahead and grab an orb to keep up our light buff. And then I'm just going to fly straight to the east side of the church. As you can see here, I'm flying down to that east portion where that door is. Now I do land right on top of where the mobs spawn. I know that they spawn here, so I'm planning on that. But if you want to wait for your group, which honestly I probably should have done that in this run, but it doesn't hurt us that I did this. You can land on the bottom of those stairs on that wooden pathway there. It's a very safe spot to land. No mobs will spawn there. You won't aggro these mobs either if you're a little bit further back. You can wait for your whole group to group up, especially again if this is a dungeon they are not too familiar with. So basically we're just doing this small pack here. There's 3 mobs in this pack. You can, if you want, you can pull these 3 in with the group that's inside of the church here. So as we walk into this church, you'll see there's a group of 5 mobs right in the center area. You can see those right there. You can pull those 3 with these 5 if you feel comfortable with it. Since this was Fortified Week and this is only week 2 of the season and this is a pug group, I wanted to just go ahead and keep these groups split up and just do this group of 5 completely by itself. One thing a lot of times with keys, I think, is you don't necessarily have to push yourself too hard in terms of how big your pulls are, especially with how much damage is reduced for a lot of classes beyond a certain number of targets, usually 5. So it's totally fine to break these pulls up if you need to. So after we finish this boss off and pick up the Xalatath buff, we're going to be doing these next 2 packs here as 1 pull. There's 2 packs that are exactly the same as that first pack we did in the church with the 3. There's like that shadow and that tactician and then the caster that's in that group. One thing I would recommend doing is if you do want to make it a little bit easier is you can try to kick the caster in this group to try and pull them in. In fact, that was my plan for the second group, but the Fury Warrior got a little bit overzealous in terms of doing some damage to that first group, so I had to come back in and kind of pick all these up. So not the cleanest pull, but no one died and we're doing just fine in terms of doing damage to the group and everything. The Paladin is actually going to be kind of a hero here and go out and kick that caster that's sitting outside the door. It's kind of frustrating that line of sight doesn't move casters anymore. In classic WoW, you can actually use line of sight to your advantage a lot of the times. Like if there's a caster on one side of a wall, you can go to the other side of the wall and the caster will follow you around. Apparently that doesn't work. And if it does work, it doesn't work often in retail. Kind of wish it did. It would make positioning as a class like a warrior a lot easier. But that's neither here nor there. So now we are on the mini boss here, and I'm going to combine the mini boss with this group of 4 outside, using shield wall just to make this pickup a little bit easier and a little bit smoother. The other thing you want to do is you want to be cognizant of your terrifying slam from this second mini boss. That's kind of what the ability that they do to you as a tank. So Terrifying Slammer will put kind of a purple circle around you, and then the boss will hit you and you'll get knocked up by that slam. So what I like to do is I actually like to use this corner here. As you can see, I'll just kind of stand in the corner. I'll kind of shift around a little bit as needed to dodge things. But anytime slam happens, I put my back up to the corner. That way, one, this gives your group more area to move around in inside of this room. And two, it just makes it so that when the slam actually happens, you just get pushed back into the corner and you get pushed up. You're not getting knocked around or, flung around or anything like that. Makes it just like a little bit easier. So as you can see, I got slam, I'm backing up, giving my group a little bit of room to move out of that slam. And we're going to be finishing off this mini boss here. So the next mini boss we're going to be going to, the second one, will be going to the house. And that's just going to be, what we're going to do is we're just going to step right outside the church here as soon as this mini boss is dead. And we're going to fly straight across the path above all the mobs. And we're going to pretty much just land right exactly where the house is. There's one specific spot I think that will make this very easy for you in order to get the count that you need. So as you notice, I land right on top of the stairs in the house. So by landing on top of those stairs, what that does is it aggroes those two melee mobs down at the bottom of the stairs, but it doesn't aggro those two casters to the left. I think this pull can be pretty difficult, especially on higher keys and like fortified keys, if you pull those two dark casters with these other 5 mobs, so you get a group of 7. I think doing this group of 5 is actually a lot easier. And this route still gives you a 100% count, so that way you'll have all of the mobs that you need. You don't have to come back down after the third boss to kill things. But again, the key is to land on the top of the stairs. You land on the top of the stairs, and then you'll go in and pull the mini boss, and then kill the other 4 mobs along with the mini boss as well. But as you can see, even without the casters, there's still just a lot of damage going on in this pull. Still puts kind of a lot of strain on your healer to make sure they're keeping people alive. So, as I said, I would just recommend pulling those 2 extra melee mobs along with the mini boss and the other 2 mobs to make a nice group of 5. So once we finish this off, we're going to be making our way to the third mini boss. And what we want to actually do is kind of go behind on the south end of the town. So we're going to fly towards those stairs. You can see those large stairs right there. And we're going to kind of land between the building and the stairs. If you'll notice, when you come around the right here, under this overhang, there is a group of 3, and then there's the mini boss standing next to that door. I would just go ahead and pop a defensive when you're doing this pull, grab the mini boss, grab the 3 mobs all together in one, and we'll just do another kind of group of 4 here. And one other tip that I would recommend doing is, as the tank, keep your back to the central area of the town, so kind of where the courtyard is. And then what this will do is any beam frontals that you get targeted with will go back away from your group, and you can simply sidestep them. This also makes this very easy for your ranged members when they get targeted with that dark orb to simply point the orb down the path and out of the town that's going south. So as you can see, that orb's going down that road. It's a little bit hard to see with the overpass, but you can kind of see it as it was leaving. But basically, it will just kind of go down that road. Won't hit any walls or anything like that, so there's no group damage coming out from that at all. You'll actually be able to see one final orb on this cast from the boss here. So you'll kind of be able to see that as it's leaving. So you can see it's just going straight down that south path. That's exactly how you want to aim it every single time. So now that we've finished the third mini boss, we're going to be kind of preparing for the second boss. So what I recommend doing is pulling this militant mob out here that's outside on this road. This isn't the most efficient way to manage the trash in here, but as a pug route and as a route for players that are maybe struggling and again are kind of unsure what to do, killing this mob will make killing the second boss much easier because it will give you a lot of space to kill the boss. You won't have to worry about pulling extra ads or anything like that. You won't run that risk at all. I think this is really safe. Again, it's particularly for pugs and for newer groups that are kind of unsure of the aggro ranges and where all the mobs are and all those kind of things inside the dungeon. So basically, after we kill this mob and we pick up the Xalatoth buff, we're just going to go ahead and pull the boss straight away. So I use a ranged ability to pull the boss, and I'm just going to pull it back kind of here. You can back it up a little bit more if you want, but I think this spot is perfectly fine, especially as a warrior, because I have the ability to charge. So Putting the boss in this position does two things. The first thing is you can see that that orb kind of goes down that path there. Anytime a ranged member gets targeted, it makes it easy for your ranged group to aim that away. The second thing it does is whenever you as the tank get targeted with Terrifying Slam, when you get knocked back, you won't get knocked back into any mobs that are behind you. And then that way you don't have to worry about pulling anything extra, causing any sort of issues or anything like that. So I think this position makes this overall, this second boss much easier to do. So as you can see, here's the Terrifying Slam. I get knocked back. I simply charge back in. There's no mobs behind me. I don't need to worry about, if I pulled something extra or anything like that. So I really like this position a lot. I think this makes this boss much, much easier to manage. There's not really much movement you have to do or anything like that. But overall, I think if you can manage this city area and make it a lot easier for your group, you'll be timing these Dawnbreakers really easily. I think this is one of the easiest dungeons in the season so far. And I think honestly the real difficulty is just managing this area. So if you can do this every time, you'll be timing these without any issue. So we'll be finishing this boss off. I just wanted to go ahead and say thanks everyone for watching. If you do want more tanking tips or suggestions or guides, please go ahead and subscribe, and I'll be providing those throughout the War Within.